Where do we start?
At the beginning. Welcome to a very special episode of This Film Is Lit. We were going to do this as part of our Your Fave is Problematic episode, our problematic breakdown of Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling. We figured that might be a good place for it, but then we saw the movie and decided that episode would be 5.5 hours long because we're going to talk about this movie for almost 2 hours, I bet, based on our notes. So yeah, we saw the Crimes of Grindelwald last night. A little bit of preface. I went in with low expectations.
Yeah.
Because of the reviews I had seen from both Harry Potter fans and just film critics. Mm-hmm. I also went in, we also went in having recently, obviously, if you listen to our podcast, we recently reread the entire main series.
We read all the books.
We rewatched the entire main series of movies.
All the movies.
And then we rewatched the first Fantastic Beasts on Sunday, 2 days before we saw the movie.
So we reviewed all of the relevant literature.
Short of like going on the Potter wiki and reading art, you know what I mean? We all of the canon stuff that's out that would be important other than Cursed Child potentially is we had within the last 5 months read or watched all of it.
Yeah.
So we were up on it. And not only read and watched it, we've discussed it and talked about it. And it's, we've broken it down. So we've I feel like we're as prepared as you can be.
We've really been steeping ourselves in the wizarding world since July.
Yeah. I feel like we're as ready as we could have been to follow this movie, understand everything, and go in with, ready to get it and be on board. That being said, I did go in with low expectations because I did kind of expect not very much. Just as an overall, we're going to do this in two sections. We're going to start with the stuff we liked about the movie. We originally had all the stuff we disliked and all of our questions and confusion first. We decided let's talk about stuff we liked first. One, it's a shorter segment.
Yes.
Two, let's start off with some positivity. Get some people, because I think I would say if you're a Harry Potter fan and you enjoyed the first one, I would still recommend seeing the movie. You probably either have or haven't by now. I mean, it's been out for 3 weeks. If you wanted to see it, you've probably seen it by now. And if you're teetering on the fence and you consider yourself a Harry Potter fan, as we do, I think I would recommend seeing it for a couple reasons. One, it has things that we like, which we'll talk about. Two, it's fascinating the decisions that were made. And it's a very interesting watch because it is both. I had moments of both. Yeah, that was fun. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what are we doing? And I think that can be a fun way to watch a movie if you prepare yourself for that. Go in expecting to be frustrated and maybe even angry at stuff and annoyed, but expect that. And I think it could still be worth going to see. Maybe. That was my general review. It's not good. I'll say that. It's not good.
The first Fantastic Beasts, I would have given a solid B.
Yeah, like a B minus.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Fine.
It's fine. Cute. Yeah, it's got its moments. No.
This is a solid D.
D.
It's a stinker.
It's the moments that work. The best moments in the movie are like A minus B plus. They're not even, the best moments aren't even like A plus stuff. The best moments are like high B. And then a lot of it is like F to D range. Whew. So, but we'll get into that stuff. First, we're going to, like I said, we're going to talk about the things we liked in Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. All right. So the first thing I liked, and it was kind of a big thing, and it's a thing because it's a thing we've talked about a lot in all of our Harry Potter episodes, is that this movie tried. It at least tried to work the themes into the story more.
Yeah.
And present those and sort of make them more obvious to the viewer in the way that the books often did. Because, and we have a note about how some of it in this movie, some of it is a little ham-fisted and blunt.
Yeah.
But to be fair, even in the books, it's always kind of been that way. I mean, I didn't notice it as much as a kid, but on rereading them, a lot of the themes were like just Dumbledore saying, by the way, Voldemort doesn't love things, and that's the point. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to be fair, that's kind of always been the MO for Harry Potter. This movie did try to work in the themes way more than the main series ever did. And I think probably the main reason for that is J.K. Rowling is the only listed writer on IMDb. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm sure there are other people involved, and to some extent there always is. But she is the singular credited writer.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing we know, it's that J.K. likes to work in themes. Like I said, it's super important in the book series, and I think she wanted to bring that back. And I think that was something, you can almost tell that something she was kind of frustrated with about the main series, is that they didn't do a good enough job of that, as we kind of called out and talked about. And it was so funny how much I noticed it in this one in comparison to the movie series. Yeah. Again, some of it's a little ham-fisted at times, and some of them are confusing, and I'm not sure what thematically she's trying to get across.
Yeah.
But there were others where it felt like makeup points for previous movies of like, hey, themes, let's talk about themes. I mean, at the end of the movie, Newt outright says, oh, real quick, this isn't spoilery, but just to clarify, there will be spoilers throughout this.
Spoilers will abound.
Spoilers abound. If you haven't seen the movie, do not. I mean, you can listen to the part we already talked about. That's all you need to listen to for now. Go see the movie, then come back. If you don't care, then move on. But there will be spoilers
Anchors
throughout.
Away.
Yeah, there will be spoilers throughout. I should just warn you now if you haven't seen the film and want to before you get spoiled. Because there are big spoilers that I wouldn't want to ruin for somebody. But at the end of the movie, Newt outright says, after the Niffler basically steals a very important magical artifact from Grindelwald, without getting into the details right now, he says, like Dumbledore's like, how did this Niffler manage to steal that or whatever? And Newt says, well, Grindelwald tends not to worry or think about or value those things which he considers less than him.
Yeah.
Which was a huge theme in the book series in terms of Voldemort. We talked about it constantly in relation to house elves and muggles and love and centaurs. Everything that's not a pureblood wizard, he didn't place value on, and thus they ended up being his downfall. And I liked that the movie at least pointed out to people, again, it's just him saying it, but that's kind of how it was in the books to some extent. Hey, look at this thing. This is an important thing. People that are different and from you are also as equally important. That's an important theme. The person who's the bad guy doesn't understand that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no. And I would get, like, from the perspective of a writer, if you're trying to pass along a message, I would get being frustrated if that message didn't translate into the film versions. Yeah. Because the film versions arguably are going to reach a wider audience.
Oh, 100% do, yeah. And I think the themes are there. We've discussed it. The themes are there in the movie. They're just not as obvious. And for younger viewers who aren't, paying as much attention or don't think as critically about it, and even just your more general audiences who aren't thinking as critically about it. I mean, even us, we discussed how it was annoying, how it was missing, and we were thinking critically about it. And now obviously you can get that out of there and you can see it when you know that that's what the point is. But for your general audiences in the original series, the main series, I think that would have been completely lost. Whereas this movie, it wouldn't be lost. It would be obvious to the viewers. So I appreciated that. Speaking of the thing that the Niffler stole, we find out that was when Grindelwald and Dumbledore were young during their little summer spat. They did a blood bond where they cut each other, they cut their hands. A blood oath pact thing. And that Grindelwald has the blood, and that basically the promise they made to each other was that they would never fight with each other.
Yeah.
I think they could have handled that part a little bit better and said like that I think the specific line of "we will never fight with each other" is a little like specific and weird, and not like, it could have just been like a more vague idea of like, we'll always look out for each other or always be there for each other. And that would also still keep Dumbledore from battling Grindelwald. And it wouldn't be as specific as like, we will never duel each other. Like that felt, but anyways, I liked that sort of addition, that retcon, because it is, of why Dumbledore didn't get involved earlier with Grindelwald and stopping him.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and it's a good explanation. For me, it's kind of tied into disappointment.
It is for me too.
That
almost all of my positives are, to be fair. But yeah.
That Dumbledore's sexuality wasn't.
It was just hinted at again. Yeah. I mean, it really was just like hinted at in the same way. I mean, more overtly than it ever was in the books.
Sure.
But still hinted at of like, some ministry official says, you guys were like brothers. And he goes, closer than brothers. It's like, well, that's a weird way to describe that relationship. Like, yeah.
So, well, I like the kind of cleverness of the blood pact idea. I also feel like it kind of further distances the story from that relationship.
I agree. I wish they had worked them both in. I wish it had been both. I wish they had been overt with the fact that they were in a relationship, and part of their romantic relationship was this deep, that they were so close that they made this blood oath together, and it was sort of all together as opposed to just hinting at the fact that they were romantically involved and then overtly being like, this blood oath thing. I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I continue to like the performance of Newt Scamander. I don't necessarily like his character at times, which we'll talk about later, but I do like the performance of Newt Scamander. I think it's really interesting. I think it frustrates people, but I think that's on purpose.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people find him very frustrating. I find him frustrating at times to listen to, and like just where he like won't say things and he'll like, like he like he like actively avoids just saying the thing that is obvious to you that would like clear up the situation. Like the whole thing with his brother being, with Tina thinking he was engaged to Leta Lestrange when his brother is. It takes him like 10 minutes in that library for him to explain that that's not the case, and it's very frustrating. But I think that's the point, and I think, and I don't know, I'm not the expert on this. This isn't my area of knowledge and not really my place to, I don't know. But the feeling I get of what they're going for is somebody who is on some sort of has some sort of social interaction disorder of some sort. I don't know the right word for it. To me, it comes across as somebody with like Asperger's. He constantly avoids potentially. I don't know for sure, but that's what it seems like to me. And you can talk about the merits of having somebody not with that disorder playing it. I get all of that stuff. I'm not, but baby steps, maybe. I don't know. Like even seeing somebody with a hero in a movie who has sort of this tough time socially interacting with people and portraying it in a way that I think feels, again, I'm not close with anybody that I know of who suffers from, or I don't know if suffers is even the right word, but who deals with that, or you know what I mean. But it feels real to me, and it feels like it's both true to the nature of what somebody dealing with that goes through, but also shows that it's not necessarily a hindrance. Like he still has relationships. He still is the hero. He's still, you know what I mean? I don't know. I like his performance, and I like elements of the character that I think are interesting and sort of unique. Yeah.
I think it feels realistic. It doesn't feel like he's doing like a caricature.
No. Yeah.
That's at least to me.
That's the thing. Again, to me, and I don't know. Again, I'm not hardly have the expertise to say if it is a caricature or not. It very well could be, but to me, it doesn't feel that way. So I think it's interesting. I really like, speaking of performances, I really liked Jude Law as Dumbledore. He's not in the movie much, but I thought
he's not.
Which I wasn't expecting him to be, but I thought he did a really good job.
No, I agree. I think he did.
I thought he captured sort of a lot of the elements of the performance of Dumbledore that a young Dumbledore that makes sense. His facial expressions and the way he would sort of look off while talking to people. And I felt that there was this cleverness behind him that he wasn't always just bringing to the forefront and showing people, if that makes sense. Yeah, like he felt like Dumbledore to me, maybe more so than even Michael Gambon ever did at times, or at least for a lot of it. I don't know. I really liked his performance.
I do think it would have been better if he had gone full on wizard aesthetic.
Yes.
Like old Dumbledore.
Absolutely agree. It's so silly because all the students are wearing robes and he's wearing a very sharp 3-piece suit.
I mean, he looks great.
He looks dynamite. He's Jude Law in a 3-piece or in a waistcoat and suit pants. Like, he looks amazing.
But I would also pay to see Jude Law in a spangled purple wizard robe and matching pointy cap.
Yes, that would have been dynamite. And now I know why they did it, for the aesthetic, because Jude Law leisurely leaning against a desk in a looking like he's in a cologne ad.
Yeah.
Is it's a good look for your movie, as opposed to like in the trailer and on posters, like ooh. But I was disappointed that we didn't see him in robes.
But I did like that we see at the end of the movie the beginning of the beard.
Yeah.
The Dumbledore beard.
The Dumbledore beard. And he is, we said in the we talked about this at some point, but he is slightly gingery. He has slightly reddish hair. Not gingery, but he has slightly like reddish.
There's a reddish tint to it.
It's at least somewhat red.
Yeah.
More so than I thought when I saw the trailers. I liked that they went and hung out at Nicholas Flamel's house. I thought that was fun. I thought it made a lot of sense. Dumbledore gives Newt Scamander a card, basically saying, hey, when you're in Paris, if you need somewhere to stay, if you run into trouble, hit up my friend. He'll let you stay there. I don't know. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes sense. That's fan service that I can get on board with.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was really well done. I wasn't a big fan of him, like, shuffling out to go like duel at the do magic at the end of the movie.
Yeah, that was a little silly.
Like, it's fun for a laugh when he's like, I haven't seen action in 200 years. Like, it's funny, but like I didn't need that necessarily, because I don't think of Nicholas Flamel as like a let's go out and do a big magic guy. He's an alchemist. Like, he tinkers in his shop and makes potions, and that's what I think of. I don't think of him because he's the person who shows up and is like, here's how we defeat this giant flame dragon. I mean, I guess I could get on board in the sense that he's like very old and very wise.
So he would probably know.
He knows some sort of ancient magic, whatever. Like, I can kind of get it. It just, I don't know, I wasn't a hugest fan of it. But.
And I liked that there wasn't that as much of an implication that immortality also means like eternal youth.
Oh yeah,
because they're two different
frail
things.
Old man in this movie.
Yeah, he's like about to blow to dust,
and he lives for another 80 years.
Yeah,
or 70 years or something. The name of the movie, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, not necessarily the most important element of the film by any stretch. More so in the first one, obviously. This one they kind of branch away from it, but they found a way to work in the beasts. Not always making the most sense, but I thought they were fun, even though they kind of like just kind of shoved into the story by like there being a circus as like part of the reason there's a lot of the beasts that show up. But I did like all of the beasts that did show up. I thought they were cool and different and fun. There's like a giant dragon cat thing.
Yeah, I loved that thing.
Which has a couple really fun scenes. It's a really cool looking animal. There's the security black like sphinx looking cats at the French ministry that were really neat looking, and when you hit them with a spell, if you attacked them, they like multiplied into more.
Yeah, they like multiplied, and then I liked that when the cats chased them out of the ministry building, they suddenly like poofed into kittens.
Yeah, somehow their magic like only worked in the ministry. Yeah, they were cool, and I like too the Niffler being worked in. I thought the way that the Niffler steals, I thought it was a very clever turn, and it made a lot of sense to have the Niffler steal the shiny, pretty necklace from Grindelwald at the end of the movie. Because one, it makes sense. We know what Nifflers, that's what they do. I mean, this has been all the way back to the fourth book, whichever one they get set, you introduced in the books. And then also tying in the themes, as I said earlier, with Newt explain, like the Niffler did it because Grindelwald doesn't care. It's like some little creature. He didn't give a shit about that. So yeah, I thought that was kind of a clever way to work in the Fantastic Beasts.
Yeah,
or at least try to some extent.
So the ministry monitors Dumbledore.
Yeah, they go to ask him to help.
Yeah,
to like stop Grindelwald, and he says, "I can't."
Yeah, basically but he doesn't say why.
He doesn't say why. He just says, "I can't." And they're like, "Okay, well in that case, we're gonna put some like security monitor cuffs on you, so we'll know whenever you do magic." And I was like, "Yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually, because like as far as the ministry knows, like assuming they've heard the whispers and rumors about the fact that Grindelwald and Dumbledore were friends when they were younger and that they spent the summer together, and they're whatever, who knows what they know, but they've probably at least heard whispers from informants and that sort of thing. Yeah. And I was like, so you knew they were friends, and now he's like, no, I can't help you stop literal wizard Hitler. I'd be like, all right, well, we're going to keep an eye on you, because if he does go and join up, you guys are fucked. If Dumbledore and Grindelwald go and work together, you're done.
Yeah, you've got a real problem now there, bud.
Yeah, so I was like, that totally made sense. And I thought it was an interesting way to sort of play protagonists against each other, like that felt real and believable, because the Ministry is actively working against Grindelwald. They're not like evil in this movie, like like in some of the later, not evil, but they're not like compromised, or they're just actively working against Grindelwald.
They're just kind of ineffective.
Yeah, but I guess they're kind of ineffective, but we don't even really see that much from them. They have a mole. Yeah. They have one guy working for him who's working for Grindelwald. But I mean, they're kind of ineffective only in the sense that Grindelwald has not really done much yet, other than he's escaped. There hasn't been that much for them to stop him from doing other than when he escapes.
It's true.
They let him get away, which is ineffective and bad. But he doesn't do much the rest of the movie except talk to people. So, it's not much they're really failing on.
The Fiend.
Yeah, speaking of that, the Crimes of Grindelwald, literally he escapes.
He kills a lizard beast by throwing it out of the flying carriage.
Yeah,
and
that was mean.
Cannot forgive him for that. Yeah. The lizard loved him.
I also thought it was weird. Themes, Katie. The lesser creature, he doesn't give a shit.
I can't forgive him for that. It's his crime.
You're not supposed to. He's the bad guy. But yeah, he also murders a bunch of people that kind of sometimes on screen, sometimes off. But
yeah.
I also liked that this movie had a lot. You can tell this was a JK movie, and it's one of the problems of it we'll talk about when we get into our big problem segment here in a minute. But it had a lot of the minutia of the books that are fun and interesting and kind of make the world magical. Just little stuff like spending a fair amount of time watching Newt go in to his lab and work with the creatures and talk to his assistant who we never see again in the movie. Sure, that random character, but that's a character who wouldn't even be in a movie that was if she was in the book of this movie.
She would have been written out.
Never would have shown, you know what I mean? She never would have shown up if this was adapted. And then there were random little scene where the Niffler pulls the cap off the champagne and flies across the room, and just there was lots of stuff like that felt very Harry Potter book, the little stuff. And so, it also tends to make it a bit boring in a movie. It can.
A little bit.
At times, this movie we'll talk about it, this movie did drag at times and get a little boring. But, it felt more magical at times than, not more magical. I don't know. There was just the little details that I enjoyed about it. That felt very JK. Also, I didn't even notice this, or I didn't even think about this, but they actually have a JK does a little setup payoff from the last movie. Yeah. And I was like, wow, look at that. And they don't dwell on it. They don't focus on it. It just happens and they move on, which is a thing that kind of happened all the time in the books.
Yeah, and that was what made that kind of stuff nice in the books and great.
Yeah.
Was that there was never this, ooh.
Yeah, it's when it's set up, it's not made a big deal of. And when it's paid off, it's not made a big deal of. I mean, sometimes when it's paid off, it's made more of a big deal of, depending on the situation.
If it's a big thing.
Right, when they figure out the locket was a thing, that's a little bit, you know. But the setup was this tiny little thing. And in this movie, they set up in the first Fantastic Beasts, and I would have forgotten this had we not rewatched it 2 days ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They set up that Pickett, or I believe, or Pick, or whatever, the what is it?
Oh.
Shit.
The little twig creature.
The creatures that protect wand trees.
Yeah.
Bowtruckle. The Bowtruckle that is Newt's friend and part of the saddest scene in the first movie, where But anyways, that scene where it is the sad one in the first movie where the guy, the Ron Perlman goblin says, Bowtruckles, can't they pick any locks? I hear they can pick any locks or something like that. And that's why he wants to Bowtruckles, because he's like a criminal mastermind guy and he wants them to like run jobs or whatever. And he's just one line, he says they can pick any lock or something. I hear they can pick any lock or something like that. And that's all we ever hear. But we never see him do it in the movie. We never know. And we get a third of the way through this movie or halfway through this movie, and they get locked in a cell, and we're like, well, shit, how, without their wands or anything, we're like, how do they get out there? How are they going to get out of there? And within 5 seconds, the door swings open, and Pickett's hanging on the door, picked it up.
The fucking lock.
And he grabs them, and they run off, and that's it. They don't say anything about it. They don't say, oh, yeah, that's right. Bowtruckles can pick any lock. Like, they don't, it's just like, whoop, go. And I was like, that's how you do that. I enjoyed that. No fanfare. It just happens, and we move on. There were probably other things I liked, but that's the end of my list. Little things. I mean, it was a pretty movie. The magic at times looked really cool. It's a high budget film. You can kind of expect that. But yeah, there was a lot of the things I liked. So now we're going to discuss in numerous parts. We have numerous sections of the crimes of Grindelwald. First things first, the confusing plot?
Quote unquote plot. So here's a fun game that we could try.
Yes.
We could try describing what happened in this movie.
Okay. All right. So what happens in this movie? Grindelwald escapes from jail. Mm-hmm. Newt Scamander gets offered by the Ministry to track down Credence, who is alive. Surprise.
Yeah.
Even though we thought he was dead. But he's just alive.
He's just alive.
And he's in Paris.
And also...
Or somewhere.
Newt's ex-girlfriend, maybe?
Yeah, Newt's ex-fling
is marrying his brother.
Who is an R, and Lita works for her brother's R's boss.
Yes.
And then
Newt goes home.
But she still has feelings for Newt, it seems like.
It seems
and
like.
Newt has feelings-ish for her, kind of.
I don't think he ever got over
He's
her.
not, he never got over her. So then, but he says, no, I won't go find him.
Yes, he doesn't want the job at the Ministry.
So he goes home, but then Jacob and Queenie show up randomly.
Yeah, like out of nowhere.
I'm not even sure why. Because she wants to tell him that they got married, but we find out that she put a confundus charm or something on Jacob to make him
like a love spell.
Or a love spell, yeah, whatever.
Know.
Yeah, some sort of love.
Because she wants to get married.
But in America,
you can't marry muggles.
You can't marry muggles. And then she leaves because Jacob is mad at her for cursing.
For putting a
spell on him. So she leaves because she's mad at him for him being mad at her.
And then Newt and Jacob decide to go on an adventure to Paris because Tina is also in Paris.
Yes, and he knows Queenie's going to find Tina, who's in Paris.
Oh, we forgot.
What did we forget?
Newt is banned from international travel.
Newt can't travel internationally.
That's important.
Because of the whole New York thing.
Yeah.
So they have to take a port key, a black market port key.
Yes.
To
Paris.
They get there, they do some snooping around,
but before they got there, we have the scene with Tina at the circus.
Oh yeah, Tina goes to the circus because somehow she knew Credence was at the circus.
Yeah,
how she knew that
was at the circus, like working at the circus, because that's how you do when you're an orphan.
I thought the whole mystery of this movie was like, we got to find Credence. Everybody just knows where he is.
Yeah,
like
right?
Tina just finds him later in the movie. What's his name? Just finds him. Grindelwald just finds him. Literally just walks up.
They set it up like it's this big mystery of like, oh, where's Credence?
Where's Credence?
We gotta go find him.
Everybody finds him immediately.
Just knows
like
that
nobody ever does any research. They all just find him. It's like they all just show up and they're like, yep, there's Credence. Like literally Grindelwald just shows up and is like
there
on the roof and he's with them. And I'm like, how did you know he was, unless I missed something, but Yeah, so Tina...
Credence is there at the circus.
With Nagini.
Who is a snake woman.
Yep, Maledictus.
Yeah.
We can't go through this whole plot. We'll talk more
about that later. Well, I feel like we demonstrated enough for people to understand.
It's a bit of nonsense, and it's a lot of nonsense. Yeah. And I thought your other game was fun. Where are the act breaks in this movie?
Yeah, let's try to divide this movie into 3 acts because it's like 17 different plots swirling around each other.
I would say the second act break is when... Oh, shit. Credence... is when... Maybe, but that might be in the third act. I might say the second act break is when... Kind of around the time when... Grindelwald calls his followers and tells Credence to meet at the cemetery.
Yeah.
But that's also kind of...
But it's also
almost like the...
and it's hard to remember, like, the order that everything happened in.
Yeah, it's impossible to remember the order.
It's got a real heavy middle.
Yeah.
Like, the middle is just...
Yeah, I'm trying to place it in my head now, and I've been thinking about it for a while, and I still am, like, having a hard time remembering a big of, like, moment. Like, it's usually not super hard to find the act where the acts split up in movies, and I'm having a real tough time.
Because, like, okay, let's talk about an easy example.
Or what's, a movie we know well and can...
Easy example, The Lion King.
Right.
First act break after Mufasa dies and he leaves.
Right.
Second act break after Nala comes back and he goes back to Pride of the King.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Now that's a little, that one's a very simple one. But yeah, usually it's not super hard. This one, and I think the third act break is around probably where I said.
I think the third act break is
the second act break.
Yeah,
but where the third act starts
is a little clearer because Grindelwald, when he calls all his followers at the end, I think that's more clearly like the climax.
Yeah.
But I have no idea where to put the first act break. I do not know.
When they get to leave to Paris, maybe. That seems early, but
yeah,
maybe like when Jacob and Newt head to Paris, potentially. Like that's that could be it.
It could be.
Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, it's a bit of a mess. So we have a lot. Speaking of this confusing plot, we have lots of questions that we're going to try to parse between ourselves, and maybe you have answers for us. If not, maybe you'll be entertained by our confusion. How did Newt know there was a box with Credence's heritage in the French ministry?
He just seems to know
says
that
it. He just says it to Tina. He goes, "There's a box." In
the French
ministry down on the whatever floor in their like hall of records.
Yeah.
That will tell us
Credence's whatever the heck we need to know.
Heritage or whatever, his lineage. And it's literally never explained how they know, how Newt knows that, how that...
Like, we see the box earlier when Queenie goes into the ministry. We see one of the bad guys with it.
Oh, yeah.
But he's not there.
Well, yeah, we see him. Because they're taking it out.
Right. And I was confused because I thought they were taking it in.
Right, but apparently they were taking it out.
Taking it out.
I didn't even put that together that's what they were. I remember that scene of them. I thought, here's the thing. I forgot about that because I remember them breaking into them. I thought they were breaking into the ministry. I knew it was two of the bad guys. I knew it was the one bad girl and the other guy, and it was I knew that. I thought they were breaking into the ministry. I didn't even put together that they had a box that box that we see later.
Yeah,
I just thought that was a thread that the movie forgot about, honestly. But that's so they were stealing that in that moment. That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. But that still doesn't make sense that Newt knows about it.
Why he would know about it. And this is a thing that I forgot to put in our notes. But this was really weird. Tell me if you noticed this. When Newt and Tina go to the French ministry to try to get that record, there's like this creepy old woman who works.
Yeah, I didn't get her at all.
Records, and I thought she was gonna be like evil or like one of the bad guys in disguise because like the way she like looked at them and was like watching them.
Yeah.
And like just let them go in.
She lets them go in, even though it seems
clearly like they're clearly lying.
And it seems like she knows they're lying, but she lets them go in. Maybe she's like, maybe lad. Maybe the idea is that when they stole the box originally, they like imperioused her and said if any of these people show up, now how they would know about Newt and Tina, I don't know, but maybe they said, maybe they said if Lita Lestrange shows up,
maybe
because they would know that she might go to look for it. Maybe like if Lita Lestrange or somebody saying they're Lita Lestrange shows up, let them in, but then sick the cats on them. I don't know.
Because she eventually does sick the guard cats on them.
Yeah, but that's after the real Lita shows up and gets in. I don't know, man. I don't know how the real Lita got in. Did the real Lita go? Because the real Lita's on a different floor. So did she go through the same desk? Because they come in on the first floor. Lita comes in on the second floor. So if she went on the second floor, then she didn't go by the lady on the first floor. And if that's the case, because I was going to say maybe when the real Lita came in, then the lady
was like, oh,
security breach. But she was on the second floor, not the first floor. And also, it seemed like the lady, the evil librarian, already knew that they weren't the real.
I know.
I don't know.
I think, there's something to be said for mystery.
Yeah.
Or for like a certain element of unreliableness.
Or even just like, it's not super important.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
But like,
think about it. It's, if
we have to parse the minutia of your movie this much, that's not a good thing.
Oh, it's infuriating. This movie was very infuriating to watch at times, just trying to figure out what was happening. All right, moving on, because we're 2 bullets into a 50 bullet.
Moving on then to point 2. Why does everyone hate Lita Lestrange?
That is never explained.
It's completely unexplained. Like they show a flashback, where there are 2.
Where she's in Hogwarts.
Yeah, she's at Hogwarts, and there are 2 girls that are like bullying her. Yeah, like they don't like her.
They don't like her.
But everybody else seems fine with her.
Yeah, it's literally just like 2 kids.
Yeah.
And everybody else doesn't seem to care. Dumbledore seems fine with her. Like he's teaching her. He seems fine.
She's got a job at the ministry. Her coworkers seem fine with her.
Yeah, she's
engaged.
In modern times, she's married to an important aura at the or she's engaged to an important aura at the ministry. She's the assistant of the head of magical defense or whatever. She seems like everybody is like fine with her, other than like 2 kids in school. But apparently, and the reason we asked this is because the thing that hit me like a truck, and I was like, wait, what? Is that at the end of the movie, she shows up when Grindelwald has this big rally, everybody's there, and after everybody leaves, she walks up, and Grindelwald walks up to her, and he's like, I know, Lita Lestrange, I know you, rejected by the wizarding world or something. And I was like,
by who?
He said that, and I was like, wait a second, what? Wait, what movie have I? Where was that? Like, literally, all we saw of that was 2 girls in elementary school picking on her. I guess I've been rejected by the human society because I got picked on a couple times in elementary school. Like,
everyone hates you.
Yeah, it was so weird. He's like, come with me. And then she, like, does, like, a fake out, but it looks like she's going to. Like, she thinks about it. And I'm like, what? Why? And all I can think is that it has something to do with... And now we get the scene right before that where she explains that she feels responsible for the death and so somewhat is responsible for the death of her brother.
Yeah.
And so she sort of carried that guilt around forever. But nobody knows about that.
Right.
Literally nobody knows about that.
I mean, maybe there's deleted scenes.
There must be deleted scenes. That's my only explanation.
I mean, maybe we're supposed to assume that she's like projecting, but I feel like that's an awfully grand assumption to expect the average moviegoer to make.
Or the idea, but see, if they're doing this, they should do what they do with Queenie, or Grindelwald's doing Legilimens and sort of working on her insecurities. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if they do that, we should get like some sort of whisper of her voice in we should get something to make it clear that that's what he's doing, because there's no implication that that's what's going on. Now, he is Grindelwald. Odds are he can probably do Legilimens.
I don't know, though, because he seems to need Queenie, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah, he seems to want Queenie on his side. So, yeah, I agree. I don't know. It was wild to me.
Yeah.
It did not make any sense.
I also spent the whole movie wondering why she was following around the Aurors.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't seem to also be an Auror. She never, like, fights anyone or anything. They never say she's an Auror.
Yeah.
I was like, is she just, like, following her fiancé around Paris while he works, or what's happening here?
I think there is a line about this, but I think it's I mean, there's so much going on that you're forgiven for not. I didn't remember it, but yeah, she is the assistant.
She's the assistant to Travers, who's the head of magical law enforcement. Yeah. But I had to go on the wiki today to figure that out. I was like, what does she do?
Yeah, you're forgiven for forgetting that, because like I said, I don't think I remembered it, but I think there probably was a line early in the movie about
probably like right when she first shows up
with Newt and talks to him about going to see Theseus or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one. The Leta Lestrange, Clovis Lestrange backstory explanation is, I'm not kidding when I say, some of the most confusing, incomprehensible exposition I have ever witnessed in a film. Ever. This scene, I probably turned to you 12 times in the scene while we're in the theaters. I wanted to yell out, what? Like in the theater, and see if anybody else was like on my level, because it's nonsense. Like,
no, it is incomprehensible.
Leta Lestrange, they get into the cemetery, like the mausoleum area where the books where her lineage is.
Yeah.
And there's this like 10-minute conversation, including flashbacks.
Yes.
About originally the guy, and I can't remember his name, Yasif or something
like that. Is this character that doesn't even matter?
No. He shows up, and he's related to. He's her brother from another mother.
He's her brother from another father. He's her half brother through their mother.
Yes.
But then
that was incredibly confusing.
Because there was like this whole weird thing where like her father like enchanted his mother.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. This whole scene, from the beginning to the end, there's like 6 explanations of who is whose parents and whose parents are whose parents, and who broke up with Leta's mom, got enchanted by her dad, who then broke up with her and then married a different woman and then had a different kid, and then you sent that kid on a boat to a different place, and then there was a different kid and she swapped him with that kid, and it's all told by this guy, and it would be incomprehensible regardless, but this whole scene is also delivered by a guy with a very thick accent that is not very thick, a slightly thick accent that was slightly hard to understand, especially saying like J.K. Rowling wizard names, like Lestrange and blah, 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 all these things. And he has this accent. And then on top of that, again, though, you could have recorded it in my voice and I would not have understood what the fucking story was. I couldn't, right now, gun to my head, I could not tell you what the relationship between that dude, whatever his name was, Leta Lestrange, what the situation with her parents, his parents, and Credence's parents were. Well, I guess Credence's parents is different, but what the relationship between her parents and his parents were, and what happened with her. I couldn't tell you.
Like, okay. We'll talk about it later, but like Leta's kind of her own issue.
Yeah.
But this dude, that scene would have been like at least 50% easier to understand if they had just cut the part with him out.
His was irrelevant.
It was completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
And they could have just had Leta show up and be like, actually, here's what happened.
Yeah, because she does do that.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
purpose to him.
But all he does is confuse it. All he does is make me go, wait, okay, because he tells the whole story.
Yeah.
And she goes, no, that's wrong. It's actually this. And it's like the same story, but slightly different. And I'm like, no, I didn't even understand the first story. Like, I couldn't even follow the first story. You can't tell me a different story now. Like, it was incomprehensible. His name is... Well, that's not his name. It's not Arnold.
It was definitely not Arnold.
It was listed as... That was the guy. Oh, no. That's the guy from the Ministry.
Okay.
At the beginning, I think. Yusuf Kama.
Yusuf Kama.
Kama. However that's pronounced. Yeah, I thought it was like Yusuf or something. Yeah, Yusuf Kama. So that's Yusuf. Yeah. He explains his whole story, and then Lita's like, actually, you're wrong. Here's the same story, but different. It's incomprehensible. I've never been more confused in 5 minutes in a movie theater. I've been more confused watching really terrible movies from my stupid YouTube show. I've never been more confused in like a professional, like in a big budget, like movie. It was incomprehensible. It's so
convoluted.
Yeah.
And for no reason.
Yeah. It was rough. I literally, it was blowing my mind how I wasn't like hearing. I was looking around the theater waiting for other people to look around like, is anybody following this? Like I wanted that moment to catch eyes with somebody and go, and like raise my arms and shrug at them like that's what I didn't understand what was going on.
Are you ready for the
next let's move
point?
On.
Okay. So this is like a sticking point for me.
Yeah.
How did Grindelwald and company know about Queenie and know that she's a Legilimens? I have no idea how to say it. Legilimens? Okay, because they bring her into the fold.
Yeah.
And it's very clearly deliberate.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we figure out why they wanted her there, because they want her to read Credence's mind to, like, know what he's thinking.
Is that why?
Oh, I mean, that's what I assume.
I mean, that's what she does at the end. Like, they use her
that's
that
why.
way.
That's why I'm assuming that Grindelwald doesn't know how to do that, because like, very clearly they needed her because
in that last scene,
purposefully bring her into...
Yeah, in that last scene, she goes like, oh, he's scared and confused. Don't come on too strong or whatever.
Like, they go to great lengths
to
bring her into the fold. But how did they know? How did they know what she was capable of?
How do they know who she is?
How do they know to target her? How do they know that she's dating a Muggle? How do they even know she's in Paris?
None of that makes any sense. Other than, and especially because there's not even, because the two bad guys are in the scene where she's in the Ministry, but there's not even a moment of them hearing her say, I'm looking for Tina, and like maybe they would there's nothing like making it clear that they noticed her or saw her or heard her say anything.
Yeah.
Unless it's a deleted scene. But like they literally just walk through and walk out while she's like picking shit up off the floor. So like I have no idea how they know who she is or anything about her.
And like Grindelwald uses her relationship with Jacob as a way to like entice her.
Yeah.
That like, oh, when I'm in charge, you'll be able to
love who you want to love.
Love whoever you want to love.
But we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we'll
fucking talk about it. That's
But very clearly, from the beginning of the movie, we know that it was a big secret that they were together.
How does he know?
How does he know? And he's been in jail.
The only thing it could be is wait for the next movie, but that doesn't make any sense. That's a cop out.
Yeah, that's bad. This is a small thing, but we see at one point Nicholas Flamel open up a book and talk to someone in a picture in the book, which isn't. I mean, that's obviously not wild for the Harry Potter universe.
What I will give this, it's frustrating, but what I will give this is that maybe it's one of those JK, here's a little thing. wait, next movie, that'll be a thing that's important. And, like, I'll give it that, like, that to me is a little different than what we were talking about with, like, how do they know she was in Paris? How did it, like...
No, I agree.
But I do agree that it was like, who is that?
It was a little
annoying.
It was a little annoying just because I didn't know if I was supposed to recognize that
it felt
person.
like you were supposed to know who it was. And I was... Because it's a book. It's like a picture book. Like the one Hagrid gives...
Yeah,
Harry,
and he opens it up and
like
he speaks with a woman.
Yeah, and she's like in like a almost like a castle or something. She's in like a elegant old background. I was wondering, like, is it like I was thinking maybe it's like a portrait of somebody at Hogwarts or something,
maybe,
or because my other thought was it his wife? But we do, and you mentioned this, we know his wife's alive. Not that still couldn't be his wife, but he could also like use flu powder or something if he wanted to talk to his wife.
Yeah.
If she's alive, which we know she is because she's alive in the books and the original series.
I mean, if it is supposed to be someone from Hogwarts, maybe that's how he communicates with Dumbledore.
Yeah, that was my own. But then why wouldn't he just talk to Dumbledore? Like, why wouldn't he just...
Well, I don't know. It was, like I said, it's not a huge deal. It was just mildly...
It was a little infuriating as a fan, thinking, like, I should know who that is.
I'm supposed to know who that is, but I don't. And I think...
I think it's going to be a thing that's going to get paid off later.
But it kind of, to me, kind of broaches the issue of that, like, that little setup and payoff. I don't know if it works as well in movie format as it does in book format.
It depends how you do it. This one doesn't work as well. The one with the
Bowtruckles.
The Bowtruckle worked great because it's not it's just a piece of knowledge.
Yeah. It
gives you something in the first movie, but doesn't give you a question. It just gives you a piece of knowledge. Bowtruckles can pick locks. Moving on. Not going to talk about it for a while. And then it gets paid off. That piece of knowledge you had gets paid off. This one is a mystery.
Right.
That hopefully will pay off. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So because in the books it works because, and so when you do stuff like that, it has to be, if you do it in a movie, it has to be the same way she does it in the books. Like with the locket, it wasn't, and then he pulled out a locket and it vibrated and smoked. And then they didn't know what they couldn't get it open, so they threw it in a closet and walked away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just literally like in a list of stuff and then it ends up being important. There's no mystery in the initial setup, but once you read it, you go, oh shoot. Look at that. That could be a thing, as opposed to this feels like it's a thing. What is this thing? And then you don't know if it's a thing or not. You know what I mean? Like there's the difference. Like I think you can do it. And I think this one might work because I want to give it the benefit of the doubt that this is going to tie into something in a later movie and be interesting, hopefully. But it's still not the best way to do that.
No, yeah, not at all. This is another little thing. Newt does this piece of magic when he gets to the place
where the circus was,
Paris, where the circus was, that like allows him to see like impressions of what was there.
Yeah.
And
it's like prior incantatum, but like prior circumstances, like
prior circumstantia.
Yeah, he says something like I can't remember what he says. Yeah. He says the spell out loud. I had mixed feelings about this.
Like it looked cool, but two things that bothered me was that one, it seemed like this really impressive piece of magic that just like wasn't commented on at all.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, how powerful is Newt supposed to be?
How what is his power level? Yeah. I did feel the same way because I never was under the impression that Newt was particularly powerful, but I'm willing to give that he's more powerful than I always sort of thought of him because he of his sort of humble, reserved nature, he just never.
Yeah, and that like the idea of him being more powerful than maybe is let on doesn't really bother me.
Right.
I guess what bothered me more so was that it seemed like it was kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a cool. I was like I said, I have mixed feelings about this. I thought it was cool looking. At first, I was like, I thought the same thing of like, this seems like, what is this? I've never like. And I'm totally fine with seeing spells we've never seen before. You got to expand the universe. You got to add new cool stuff. I get it. And the thing that worked for me originally was when he first does it, he starts seeing like the magical creatures that had been there. And I was like, oh, maybe this is like some like tracking creature like because it makes sense for him. Like, you know, maybe other wizards have no use for this, so we've never seen any other wizard use it. But like for Newt, who's trying to find creatures, cool.
Although that would beg the question of why didn't he use that in the first movie when the whole plot was about him looking for creatures?
Right.
Moving on.
Right. Yeah. But disregarding that. So when it was that, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I'm on board with that. Mm-hmm. Like, that would be neat. But then it gets a little weird because then he sees Tina.
Yeah.
And like Tina's footprints and stuff. And I was like, well.
So it's like we can see.
And then he finds a feather and the feather leads them. Yeah.
And Tina.
Yeah. And then the feather leads them, a feather from a hat leads them to Yusuf.
Yeah.
And I was like,
this is.
All right. That got a little different. It was just a little weird. It was. Yeah, I don't know. I'm mixed about it. It did feel a little too impressive for something we've never heard of or seen before, and a little too impressive for like Newt potentially.
Yeah.
Again, I have no problem with Newt being more powerful, but it feels like it than we think. But like, yeah, I agree. It was a little.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a good way to introduce that idea. To me.
Yeah, if we're gonna introduce that, it needs to be introduced by like Dumbledore or Grindelwald or somebody like that we know, like, oh boy, they're crazy powerful.
Yeah.
And then moving on, or have it be a specific type of thing, like this is a way to find magical creatures, and that's why Newt can do it, whatever, you know, or knows how to do it. So the big twist, the big whoo boy, fuck you twist to this movie. Credence is the long lost brother, hereto unknown brother of Albus Dumbledore.
Yeah. Did they say specifically that they say he's a Dumbledore?
They say he's a Dumbledore. He might not be his brother.
Yeah.
That was my assumption. So now that you mentioned that, maybe that's a better way to make it a different direction, that he's not his brother, but like a cousin or something. Yeah, maybe. But so he's a Dumbledore. That makes me change almost all my entire feelings about that. If he's not his brother, because the implication feels like he's Dumbledore's like younger brother. It feels
like long lost brother territory. But if that's the case, because we see when we
and especially because his name's Aurelius and the A's Aberforth, Albus, Ariana. Like, all of the kids have A names.
But when we see him as a baby in the flashback, he's with, like, there's a woman taking care of him. And
taking him to America.
And we know.
But he's got a thing in him. We don't
know who that is.
He's got a thing in him, and the idea could be that he's got the whatchamacallit in him. The
Obscurus?
Obscurus. So maybe the idea is Dumbledore's mom or something realized, or his dad, I don't remember when his dad even died or whatever, but
I thought an Obscurus formed when you were like punished for your magic, or like I thought the idea that the Obscurus formed like because he was living with the crazy religious lady in the first movie.
Well, maybe, yeah. Now I can't remember if that's ever explained thoroughly.
But I mean, my question.
Yeah, let's get on to your question. I'm gonna do a quick Google
with Credence being a Dumbledore potentially. Assuming, I mean, first off, I'm assuming that we'll get this information in an upcoming movie.
Yeah, we will probably.
Wondering. But assuming that Grindelwald isn't like lying to him or trying to trick him or whatever.
You're right. But real quick, by the way, an Obscurus is a dark and parasitic force created when the child in question consciously attempts to repress their talent or were first forced to do so through physical or psychological abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the implication. Yeah.
All right. So assuming it's not a lie.
Yeah, that Grindelwald's not lying.
We have another example, I feel like, of Grindelwald just like having knowledge that we don't know. Like, how would he know that he was a Dumbledore? Because, like, if Lita was the only one who knew that she switched babies, then how could he have possibly have known? Because everyone would have thought that Aurelius Dumbledore died in the boat.
And or I would assume that the child was under like a pseudonym that was being transported to America under like not, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because, like, why would the it's just a lot of questions. Yeah, there are a million questions that we could go down of, like, why was the child... And I assume, again, that probably a lot of these will be answered in further movies. Yeah. Fully understand that. But, yeah, how did the fuck did Grindelwald know about it is... we have no idea.
Because it doesn't seem like... Like, I can buy that he knows about Queenie more than I can buy that he knows this.
Yeah. At least, yeah, because he ran into... Newt at the end of the first movie and Tina, so he knew them and he knows of them. So somehow during his communications while he was in prison, because we know he was basically had a man on the inside helping him, that helps him escape. That person, he could have had that person looking for Tina and Newt and finding out information about them. Again, none of that's in the movie, but maybe that's what was going on. So yeah, that's a little understandable. But like. Yeah, I have no idea how he would know who Credence was or how he would have gotten that information.
Also, on a similar note...
Other than the magic skull. Maybe the magic skull thing that's just...
the magic skull.
The magic MacGuffin. Yeah.
Do we know also why the elf caretaker lady just, like, gives credence away to that religious nutter woman? Do we ever... Like, is that... Does she actually say that, or does she get killed right before she's about to say that? Like, how does he end up with her?
Yeah, we don't know. She dies, as she was saying. She says, your mom told me it had me take you to... I don't remember. She dies in the middle of that scene. She gets Avada Kedavra'd by the bad horror guy.
Speaking of, whatever happened to him? Is he still there at the end?
I don't remember if he lived or died. Okay. Because, to be fair, it was a lot of, like, boring-looking white dudes in this movie, and they're wearing hats, and they were very interchangeable to me, and I could not remotely tell, like, him and, like, the head of defensive magic, or, like... Theseus's like boss guy and like
boring middle-aged white guys,
middle-aged British white dudes in fedoras and suits all looked exactly the same. Like, I couldn't tell you what happened to that guy.
I didn't even think of that until like 24 hours.
I forgot. Yeah, watched this film. I felt like the last time
wait a minute.
Wasn't the last time we saw him when he apparated out of that orb? Like after he kills the elf lady, the elf caretaker, and then Credence attacks him, and then he just apparates inside the orb. Do we see him again after that?
Was that before or after he's revealed to be a double agent?
Oh, well, the other time we see him, he talks to Grindelwald. After that, he goes to Grindelwald.
But I think you're right. I think that's the last time we see him.
But I don't know. We could have seen him every scene after that, and I never would have been able to tell you the difference between him and half the other people in the movie.
Okay, so... There's like an implied, well, that's not even, it's kind of implied, but it's kind of overt. There's like a love triangle between Leda and Newt and Theseus, who's Newt's brother.
Right.
And well, first off, there's not nearly enough of an explanation for why Newt and Theseus don't get along.
There's not an explanation. I didn't have much problem with this because I kind of just got from like sort of the context and some of I actually picked up that they mainly don't get along because Theseus is sort of a outgoing go-getter.
That's fine.
And I mean, because there's a line where Newt says he's a bit of a hugger.
Yeah.
And like, it's sort of contrasting Newt's sort of reserved, awkward nature. And like Theseus is like his big, tall, cool, handsome brother who's like, working for the ministry and is like an auror, and like Newt's just like wants to go sit in his room and play with animals, like, you know what I mean? Like I just thought they like never really...
That's fine, and I wouldn't have a problem with there being more of like an implied tension, especially between siblings.
Yeah.
Except that I felt like they shoehorned Leda in as like a further explanation for why they don't get along.
Right.
And it doesn't work. because the whole thing is so underdeveloped.
Yeah, it's completely Theseus and Leda are completely underdeveloped. We like never see them together. We never know why they're together.
Yeah, why are they together?
We never hear like what happened between her and Newt that now he's with her. Like it's mentioned in the first movie that he liked Leda and that like or whatever, he has a picture of her, but like that's all we ever hear. And then like, she's just
okay, that's a juicy story though.
Right.
Like you were like kind of sort of at lovers-ish with this guy, and then you end up with his older brother. Yeah, like, how's that happen?
How does that happen? We never get any backstory on how that happened. And I would imagine we won't because, spoiler, she's fucking dead. Like, what?
She fucking
This would be the movie for it if we were going to get any of it, and we don't. And it felt like there should have been a couple more flashback scenes after that moment where they're, like, hanging out with the Raven in the tower.
Yeah.
And they're like, Newt and Leda are bonding. There should have been a couple more like flashbacks or something where
because
she starts like growing close to Theseus or something. Yeah. Give us something like, of the setup of their relationship.
We don't know what their fallout was between Leda and Newt.
We don't know what the fallout was.
We don't know how Leda and Theseus got together.
No.
Like I said, it's very underdeveloped and it felt like shoehorned in.
Yeah, I agree with that. I did actually liked the relationship between Theseus and Newt, and it made sense to me as just sort of they like polar opposite personalities kind of. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that being siblings, and then but there's also they do care about each other, like, and you got that from the beginning, like when Theseus tells Newt like the ministry's watching you, even though Newt won't do what his brother wants him to, Theseus still tells him, like, is looking out for him. He's like, look, the ministry's watching you, just as a heads up. And so, like, I actually kind of liked their relationship. There's not a lot of it in the movie, but I thought it worked pretty well. But yeah, the whole Leda thing is.
Yeah, I'll cede to your points on that. I just think it would have been a lot stronger if they hadn't done the love triangle thing.
Either don't do it or flesh it out.
Yeah, or do it properly.
Or do it, yeah.
Don't half-ass it.
Yeah, do one of the two. Don't just do... Yeah, don't just throw it in there. That was it for confusing plot?
Our next two sections are shorter.
Oh, yeah. Most of our segments are shorter from here on out. Well, except for the last one. But, this section is too much stuff. Not enough space.
So
this movie is not a TARDIS. This movie is not the bottom of Newt Scamander's lab.
This is like several...
It wishes it was.
It's several movies crammed into one movie.
Yeah.
And it is not a good look.
No.
Like, and the frustrating thing to me is that these separate movies are all movies that I would have been happy to watch separately. Yeah. Like, I would be happy to watch Newt Scamander run around
collecting
being like
magical beasts.
A wizard crocodile hunter.
Right.
Like, it would have been fun. Super fun. Great. Happy time. I also would have been happy to watch, like, an action drama about Grindelwald and Dumbledore.
And like they're back and forth. Yeah. Here's the thing. I like what this movie tries to do. I like taking both of those and mashing them together. It's just... Here's the problem, I think. I think the problem is that this is J.K. Rowling's movie.
Burn.
And I mean that with all due respect, in the sense that J.K. Rowling is not a screenwriter.
Yeah.
I mean, she's now written a couple movies. I think this and the first one. But she's not a screenwriter. And she doesn't have the practice of a screenwriter. She's the only credited writer on this movie. And what she really, really needed was an editor. She needed another person who knew how to write for screen to come in. And now who's to say she didn't and it's just not credited? I don't know. Or how much input somebody else, whatever. I'm just saying what this movie felt like it needed was somebody else to come in and go, we got to pare this down. We have to make this like all these ideas, lots of good ideas here, but we can't put all of this into 1 hour and 15-minute movie.
It was like she was the drunk friend and she needed a sober friend.
Yes.
To be like, maybe not.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. It's actually made me really appreciate, despite all the faults we had with the Harry Potter series, the original Harry Potter series, this made me really appreciate Steve Kloves as a screenwriter. because, I mean, the problems we have with those movies, they are legion. We've talked about them, but those movies work as movies generally.
Yeah.
The plots make sense. You can follow them. This one you cannot. And I think the problem is that J.K. Rowling wrote what she wanted to write in a 800-page book, a 900-page book. And then she tried to figure out a way to cram that into 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so that's why when we go through our things that are better in the book from all those movies, it's a bunch of things because the movie writer, the screenwriter, Steve Kloves, usually went, can't have this, can't have this, can't have this. This is just too much. And some of the stuff sucks. And there's some things I think they should have left in that they removed. But I really do appreciate that you can't do what J.K. Rowling would want to do in a 2.5 hour movie or 2 hour and 15 minute movie.
It's not possible.
This is not possible. And I mean, and then the thing that's wild is that even though she crams so much stuff into 2 hours and 2 hours and 15 minutes, this movie still manages to be boring at times.
Yeah.
And like we spend a lot of times in rooms with people standing around talking to each other or like walking to places talking to each other. Or
yeah, it's a little Tolkien-esque in that way.
It really is, of a lot of standing around talking and like punctuated by the occasional action sequence. Whereas a lot of looking back on the Harry Potter movies, the original Harry Potter series, that's not the case. You get those at the end. You get those sort of exposition-y couple characters standing in a room discussing.
We go to Dumbledore's office.
We go to Dumbledore's office.
Everything
or we stand in a graveyard, or whatever. Exactly. We have those big exposition kind of people standing in rooms talking at the end, but the rest of them move, action to action, things happen.
And the beats of this movie don't work.
No, the pacing is real rough.
The pacing is rough. And I think you're right. I think it's because she doesn't know how to screenwrite.
No, she doesn't know how to write a screenplay. I mean, I think that's just kind of what it boils down to. She doesn't know how to write a screenplay.
Well, we can't all have every talent, I guess.
No, that's true. That is true.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about Lita.
Yeah.
And I put this under this category because I'm so sorry, but Lita is wholly unnecessary to this movie. Like, full stop, unnecessary.
She really is.
It's
unfortunate.
It is because I liked
the character.
Yeah, I liked the character. I liked the performance. This was I can't remember. Zoe Kravitz, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah. But like her character and her storylines are barely developed.
Yeah, she just gets nothing.
Bare minimum.
Yeah.
So they bring her.
But she's like a main element of the story. But
she's so underdeveloped. They bring her into this movie, and for what? Like, so that Newt could finally decide he wants to oppose Wizard Hitler?
Yeah.
And then they just kill her. Like, what was the point?
Yeah.
There's a term for that. It's a trope. When the female character dies to spur the male character into action.
I don't know the name of it, but I'm sure there is. It sounds like a trope. I mean, it is a trope.
It is a trope.
I'm just saying.
I just don't know the name of it.
No, I don't either. But yeah, she literally does. She's irrelevant to the plot. But while being pivotal, it's the weirdest thing. Like, she's super important, but completely underdeveloped, completely underutilized, completely...
She, her character could have been really cool, but totally gets the shaft.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough. It's real rough.
And speaking of characters getting the shaft...
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next segment.
Pew pew character assassination.
So let's talk about Queenie.
Let's talk about Queenie.
From beginning to end, just a total departure from the first movie.
This was mind-blowing to me. She was one of the most interesting, fun characters.
She was so delightful.
Delightful while not being a caricature in the first movie.
Yeah.
And this movie just fucking destroys her. Just straight up mutilates her character.
Yeah.
Like, in unfathomable ways that I was not prepared for. Like, it was the last thing I would have expected from this movie was what they did to Queenie. Like, it was weird.
So she ends up falling in with Grindelwald.
Yeah.
And, like, okay. Even if, like, the idea, like, the message that we're trying to get at here is like,
I got the message.
Even normal people can get caught up by a demagogue.
Yeah, that's the message. I think that's the theme. I think that's the theme. And again, that has its own problematic overtones of like, just they're not, they got caught up. They fucking voted for Hitler, but like they're not that bad of a person. There's some, like that has it's questionable to begin with, but
also,
in the most charitable view, I can see what she's going for.
In the most charitable view, yes. But also, like, we know that Queenie's not an idiot.
No, that's the thing. Queenie's not an idiot. But this movie thinks she is.
Yeah. Like, she has to know that Grindelwald isn't actually going to let her marry a muggle.
Yeah.
Because, like, his whole thing is that they're subhuman.
Yeah. That was the thing that straight up blew my mind about this movie.
Yeah. And she can fucking read minds.
She can read minds. But but even disregarding that, her whole reason she basically joins up is that she thinks somehow that with Grindelwald in power, because Grindelwald talks to her for 5 seconds and goes, love who you want to love. And she goes, but I love Jacob and I want to get married and he won't get married. And the whole reason Jacob won't be married is because in America, muggles and wizards can't get married, and he doesn't want Queenie to get in trouble for marrying a muggle, so he doesn't want to marry her because of that. There's a whole host of problematic elements about this. Mm-hmm. One is that, like, it's the 20s, so maybe it's somewhat forgivable, but, like, the whole idea that he doesn't want to get married with her, but she's so fucking obsessed with the idea of marriage that she has to be married to him. But, like, so that's the whole thing. And then because Grindelwald says, oh, you love who you want to love, she somehow buys in that means she can marry a muggle when she literally sat there and listened to Grindelwald talk about the fact that muggles, I mean, he says, well, they're not below us. They're just lesser. Like, he basically, just fucking bullshits about how,
they're not below us, but actually they are.
We don't hate muggles, but we kind of fucking want to wipe them off the face of the earth. Like, and again, it's kind of going for that whole, like, silver-tongued, demigod. Like, but, she's not an idiot. Like, she shouldn't be an idiot. She's a little naive about some things, but she's not a fucking idiot. Like, and so the fact that she buys in and is like, yeah, I'll join you because somehow that means I'll get to marry this muggle is mind-blowing.
It's like if, like, a Christian person in Germany in the 1940s was like, I want to marry a Jewish person. Yeah. I better vote for Hitler because he's going to let me marry.
That's literally
what?
Literally what that happens. And again, I know we're going to get the turn. She's going to realize, like, we know that's where it's going. I know that's where it's going. Obviously that's where it's going. Queenie's not going to stay a fucking bad guy. Like, that's just not going to happen. But, and again, I get it for, like, the attempted idea, but it feels weird. It feels really weird. And it feels really, like, problematic.
She's not an idiot, and unless Grindelwald is a really good Occlumens, like, she should know that he's bullshitting her.
You would think. I don't know. It's
and like and you hinted at this earlier, but, like, not only is this a departure from her character, it's kind of a sexist.
Oh, I thought it was sexist as shit.
It's like all of a sudden she's, like, hysterical and she's desperate to get married. Yeah. And she's putting Jacob under a love spell and like all this shit.
Yeah. And she's literally, I mean, the way this storyline culminates is that our protagonist in this moment, Jacob, the storyline culminates by him being justified in calling his girlfriend a crazy bitch.
Yeah.
Like, because he almost says it early in the movie. And he goes, you're being, and then it's like starts their whole fight and blah, blah, blah. And, like, whatever. But then in this moment, and I mean, to be fair, she's being stupid.
Yeah.
Like, but because her character doesn't make any sense and was assassinated, like it just doesn't follow from her character. So he's justified in saying she's crazy. But the fact that this male character is justified in calling his girlfriend crazy as like the climax of their storyline in this movie feels fucking weird.
Yeah. It's weird.
Like it feels really
gross.
regressive. Like,
and it doesn't make any sense with what we saw of her in movie one. She's a totally different character.
Totally different character. It just felt so out of nowhere because like she goes to France and gets a little bit scared.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't speak French. I don't know. I think I know what the movie was trying to do, but boy, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is the thing too. So we're going to do a whole episode about the problematic elements of Harry Potter. This movie is like the whole series level of problematic in one movie. I sort of feel like.
It's like they took all of the problematic things that are like spread out through the whole series and then like
condensed them
into one movie.
Yeah.
And magnified them and like shone a light on them.
Yeah.
In the dirty underbelly.
Speaking of, what's your point, J.K. Rowling? What's your point?
What do you want us to get?
That's the name of our next segment. What's your point, J.K.? Which is that I asked myself that a lot throughout this movie.
Yeah.
And again, it's a thing you ask yourself occasionally during the book series where you get elements where you're like, I don't know if that adds up. I don't know if that works the way either you thought it did, or if it does, then I'm grossed out by the fact that you wanted that to work out that way. This movie has a lot of that. What exactly is your point? I'm confused.
So here's a big one.
Yes.
Does Grindelwald actually want to stop World War II? And if yes, how the fuck am I supposed to feel about that?
I don't know. Because, yes, he
uses the hookah skull.
The hookah skull of the hookah skull of foretelling. And blows smoke into the air in front of all the wizards that are at his Nazi rally. And basically says this is what's coming, and it's essentially shots. It's like a montage of World War II.
Yeah,
it's like the invasion of Normandy, some other stuff, and then the bombs on Nagasaki.
Oh yeah. They show the atomic bomb, the mushroom cloud.
Which dropped two nukes or two atomic bombs at the end of the war. And so, again, like you said, what am I supposed to feel? Here's my assumption of what JK might have been going for, but it doesn't work. We'll talk about why it doesn't work, but I think this is what she was going for. I think the idea was that she's showing that fascist leaders use fear-mongering to whip up a crowd to draw followers to their cause. Look at this scary thing. Look at this big scary...
This is the scary thing that's going to happen. We're on the slippery slope.
There's a slippery slope to Armageddon. There's a fucking migrant caravan. There's a fucking blah, 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 whatever you want. They use fear to whip up followers because fear motivates people very effectively.
Yes.
And I think that's what she's going for. But here's the problem with that. And it's muddy to us as viewers because we know that the thing he's using to fearmonger actually happens.
Yeah.
It's not.
And was horrific.
Yes. Like truly was terrible. Like millions, thousands, millions of people died. Yeah. Millions upon millions of people died.
So we get this moment where we're like, am I supposed to be rooting for him?
Yeah.
Because he wants to stop this.
Yeah.
So he says.
But again, there's the flip side is that his idea of stopping this is that we just need to like enslave muggles, which is also bad. So like,
right.
But it's muddy. And the thing is like the reason the reason fear mongering is bad when fascist dictators when people starting sort of populist uprisings, fascist uprisings use it. The reason it's bad is because in the real world, those fears are unfounded,
right?
Or they're overblown.
Yeah,
like in 1930s Germany is the Jews were the fear. This
or like the Red Scare here.
A Red Scare, or in modern days the fucking caravans and the fucking whatever you want to pick thing, the fucking death panels for health insurance, whatever. The reason these fear-mongering things are bad is because they're nonsense. They're not real problems. They're not real bad things that are going to happen. They're made up, overblown, hyperbolized fears used to draw in followers and ironize your side.
Yeah,
basically.
You seize onto one thing that you know makes your followers uncomfortable, and you blow it up and blow it up and blow it up.
Right. And so, again, in this scene, that happens. This is the thing. As viewers, we know it happened. To them, they don't know, so you can kind of argue. Yeah. But, like, we know it happens. We know that's reality. Like, that's what happens 20 years from now. And so, or 15 years from now. I think the scene would have been more effective for the theme if they had shown, like, some weird, like, hyperbolized version of World War II. I don't know how... Yeah. I mean, it's already bad enough. It was already terrible. But, like, if there was some way of doing it where, like, they show... And, I mean, fucking London did basically get leveled. But, like, London, like, a desert.
Yeah.
Or
just fucking make something up.
Make something up.
Make something up.
That makes it clear that he is playing on their fears of, like, we will all, or shit, show and here's an even better way. Show the fucking concentration camps, but show wizards in the concentration camps. Mm-hmm. Show, and that's questionable in its own way, but, like, show the because that's what you're playing on is the fear of the wizards. Show the wizards being, I mean, and they're obviously caught in the crossfire of a world war. Like, wizards are gonna die when nukes are dropped or whatever. But, like, show specifically in that moment him playing up this grand threat to wizards beyond just a war that we know happens. So that way we can be like, okay, I see what's going on here. This demagogue is playing to their fears in a way to sort of utilize them for his own purposes. But that's not what happens, and it's really confusing about what I'm supposed to take out.
Confusing as a viewer.
Yeah.
It's very I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of that. And that's why this whole segment is called What's Your Point, JK? Including at that rally. Hi, boy, oh boy, do I have...
no, yeah, you were on fire about this.
I was on fire about this. This feels real weird to me.
Real gross.
So, Theseus finds out about the rally that Grindelwald's going to have.
Yeah.
And he wants to go and stop. I don't even know. He never even says exactly what he wants to do. But he's talking to Dumbledore. And Dumbledore tells him, don't go. Mm-hmm. Don't go to the rally. And then kind of implies if you do go, don't start anything. Don't do anything. We don't want whatever. Basically imploring him, like, not to, like, go to this rally.
Yeah.
And this to me feels like J.K. Rowling is literally having Dumbledore, our moral compass of this whole kind of. I mean, he has his faults, but, like,
but he kind of is.
He is the moral, like, good guy of the series that he's the ultimate good guy. Basically tells our good guys in this movie, the Aurors, the Ministry, Newt, whoever, not to go protest or stop literal fascists from organizing because it's quote unquote not illegal. They say this in the movie.
Say that.
It's not illegal for them to go there and
gather there and listen to them.
To gather and listen. So don't go mess with that. And, like, I kind of get I'm of two minds about this. This is the thing I debate with myself all the time about sort of what's effective versus what's right, that sort of thing. Like I get all this and like I get the point, but here's where it feels weird to me is that it feels really gross and irresponsible to basically have the message be, if you go and protest against literal wizard Hitler, all you're going to do is make them angry and give them more ammunition for their side. It's like, well, then what do we fucking do, J.K. Rowling? Like, what's the answer then? Like, what? No, for real.
Yeah.
Like, you just because literally the implication of this is if Albus Dumbledore got what his way, like if Theseus and the Aurors did what Dumbledore said, Grindelwald just has his giant Nazi rally.
Yeah. Because if confronting them and trying to stop them, we don't want to do that because it just makes things worse.
Yeah.
Then the only other option is to do nothing.
To do nothing.
To just let them do their thing.
Yeah. And now it gets, because here's the thing, at the rally, and this is where it feels really like timely and gross and makes it even more weird, is that at the rally, one of the fascist people attacks one of the Aurors. Mm-hmm. And the Auror defends himself, and now he defends himself by fucking murdering the person. He could have just like stunned them.
He does defend himself
with Avada Kedavra
enthusiastically.
Yeah, he defends himself with Avada Kedavra, which feels like, okay, well, yeah, all right. But like, he defends himself, and then Grindelwald literally uses that. He says, and again, this is a little on the nose topical of like, he's like, look, see, they're the violent ones. Go tell everybody that the Aurors are the violent ones. And it's like, so what is your point, J.K. Rowling, that we shouldn't stand up to literal Nazi wizard guy? Like, is that the point? Like, that we should just let them do their thing and then, like, maybe they'll stop on their own? Like, what's the answer? Like, it feels, it is, and you have this, and I don't want to, it is so perfectly, a term that you've coined, boomer woke, that's like super gross and like, why is everybody gotta be so angry about things? Yeah. Like, just let them have their Nazi rally, and then I mean, like, if we don't go and get angry, if we're not angry about them having their Nazi rally, they'll just stop being Nazis. It's like,
motherfucker, no.
Like, fuck, J.K. Rowling, that's not how the world works. I don't know. That whole thing, it just felt really gross and weird to me, and it felt like it felt very like blaming the victim. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Type of like, yeah, those fucking Antifa going to those rallies saying that people shouldn't want to make a white ethno-state. I mean, yeah, those white ethno-state people are wrong, but like, did you really have to go and tell them they were wrong? Like, all right. Oh, all right. Anyways.
Speaking of gross things,
yeah.
Here's another gross thing. Newt literally says in this movie that he doesn't take sides.
Oh, this fucking Jesus Christ.
Are we supposed to like that about Newt? Are we supposed to like that he doesn't pick sides?
At the beginning, he goes, because his brother wants him to, help stop Grindelwald.
Yeah.
And now, to be fair, the way that they want him to help stop Grindelwald is by murdering Credence, which that seems weird that's their answer and not just like getting Credence and like taking him somewhere safe,
protective custody.
Right. But it's like, well, we got to kill him. Like, all right, well, that seems stupid, and it seems like it makes sense then for Newt not to want to do that. So it seems so little convenient. But it spurs on this conversation where Theseus goes, well, like, are you not going to help us with Grindelwald? And he's like, well, I don't take sides. And it's like,
he's Wizard Hitler.
Well, and here's the thing. I was like, okay, movie. I got really mad when that line happened. But it's in the beginning of the movie. I'm like, you know what? I'm willing to allow you a character arc movie. I'm willing to allow Newt to grow as a person and decide I need to take sides. I was like, all right. I'm mad, but I'll give you this. I'll give you this. It's the beginning of the movie. Character arcs are a thing. Let's see where this goes. Where this goes is that the only reason he decides, yeah, I should actually side against Wizard Hitler is because the girl that he loves, he's literally Snape.
Yeah.
He's basically, she wrote Snape again. Oh no. Oh no, she wrote Snape again. Why does she love Snape so much? Why does she love the Snape character arc so much? I mean, he's way better than Snape, but at least he's not like actively bigoted. But she kind of wrote Snape again. Literally, the only reason he decides to stand up against literal Wizard Hitler is because Lita Lestrange is murdered by him.
Yeah.
And that's right after that happens, he goes up to Theseus and is like, all right, I'm on your side. And it's like, that was the reason? You not because you heard that his whole speech about fucking muggles and how they were, or how they're lesser, like, his whole, like, fucking double speak thing about, like, muggles and how we're going to enslave them for their own good and for the greater good and all that stuff. No, it's because somebody you liked died.
Oh, yeah, no. Newt does not side against Wizard Hitler until it affects him personally. A fine quality in a protagonist.
It's the Snape thing.
Yeah.
That's literally the Snape. I didn't even think about that, but that's basically the Snape thing. I mean, to be fair, like I said, he is a little bit better in general because he's not bigoted. In fact, he's the opposite, but he's still like fucking, I don't pick sides. Well, one of those sides is literally Hitler. Pick a side, fucker. Like, come on.
This is kind of one of those moments where I almost wish we did this as a video series and not a podcast, because I wish you guys could have seen Brian's reaction when he realized it was another Snape plotline.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the end of...
That's the end of What's Your Point, JK?
And we're getting there. We're almost done. Now we're going to talk about retcon. The word of the day is retcon.
So if this was a normal episode and we were like doing a prequel for it, the topic that I would want to discuss for learning things would be retconning.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think you are a little more lenient about it.
I'm way more lenient
than I am.
I don't have a problem with retconning generally. I have a problem with it when it's done poorly and sort of lazily. Mm-hmm. I think there's too much of a negative association with the idea of retconning in general. And I think as soon as you say it, people is like tie this sort of like hacky, bad idea to it. And I don't think that's the case for me.
I think the reason that we have that association is because when retconning is done well, it feels right. And it doesn't feel like a retcon, quote unquote. I think that your average audience goer who maybe doesn't have the tools to talk about this kind of thing might not notice.
Right. I guess it's because when I look up the definition of retcon, it's a very broad definition of like adding things to a story or adding ideas or things to a story that change the interpretation of a previously established
and I'm not
story.
I'm not saying that all retcons are bad.
I know you're not.
That's not what I'm here about. There are a lot of retcons that I loved. I loved the retcon of Thor in Thor 3. That was like a soft reboot. That was like a retcon of the whole Thor mythos almost.
Is that a retcon?
Well, a retcon is just a reframing of previous events to like suit the current needs of the story. So yeah, kinda.
Oh, you mean the part with the thing with Hela, or like what do you mean? Because that was just like a soft to me. A reboot is not a retcon. That's just like that's completely different. And even a soft reboot to me isn't a retcon. I mean, the Thor completely built off. Now that you can say there's a slight retcon in the sense that like we had never heard about Hela
Yeah.
And like now there's this new character that Odin tells them about, like, oh, you had the sister Hela who I imprisoned and like never told you about any of this stuff. But like that's a bit retconny, but like the rest of it didn't feel retconny to me. I don't know.
Regardless, I don't think that retcons are always bad. Like I said, it's just a reframing of events to suit whatever the story is currently in need of.
Yeah.
And I think it can work really well depending on the writers. I think it works particularly well in comic book properties.
Yeah. I guess my point was that I think the reason I wanted to push back some is that when I was reading through some of the things you talked about as retcons, I felt like you were implying you felt negatively about them, where to me, they didn't feel like a negative retcon. They just felt like expanding the world. I
don't feel negatively about every single thing on this list. Some of it I'm kind of neutral about. My point more so was that there was a lot of retconning, I felt like, with this property in particular. And I think when you have a lot of that built up, it can easily become a problem.
Okay.
I just think that I think a retcon should answer more questions than it opens.
I don't agree. I don't necessarily agree.
I also think that there should be purpose to it beyond this is what I feel like doing right now. And for some of the stuff, I feel like there's not necessarily, or at least it doesn't seem like it.
I don't even know if I agree with that. I think as long as mine is super subjective because your criteria is a little more objective. Mine is as long as it feels like it works, like it feels right within the world.
That is really subjective.
No, it is incredibly subjective, but like I don't have a problem with a writer going back to their material and then writing a prequel or something and going, ooh, this was a cool idea. And as long as that cool idea makes sense, I feel like it makes sense and works within the world and follows from previously established sort of rules and that sort of thing. Like I have no problem if the only reason for it is like, I think this is a cool idea. I have no problem with that as long as what the reason is that, and then it also fits in a way that feels right. Mm-hmm. Like there are plenty of things, there are a handful of things on this list that I feel like they were like, this is a cool idea, and then they plugged it in and it doesn't fit. Like it doesn't remotely fit into the hole they plugged it into. Like that's where I have a problem with it. But when they're like, this is a cool idea, like J.K. Rowling goes, oh, I like this. This is an idea I wish I'd come up with when I wrote the original series. And then they plug it in and they go, yeah, it actually kind of fits. I'm like, fucking right on. Let's do it. Like I have no problem with that. Like if that's your only reason.
Yeah, if it kind of fits, sure. I just, to me, the sheer volume of retconning with this in particular, even if some of them work, right? Because some of them do work.
Yeah.
We talked about the Blood Pact in particular. To me, it's a volume issue because I feel like when you're doing that much retconning, you're not challenging yourself to work within the parameters that you've already set.
Yeah, I guess. To me, I agree in the sense that, like I said, to me it's super a feel thing. Like, and I can totally be on board with somebody else being like, I feel like that is fan service retcon bullshit. Or whatever, not necessarily fan service, but like retcon and doesn't work. And to me, as long as I feel like, because it is magic, because it is kind of loosey goosey, as long as to me it feels like it fits within the world and it works, I don't know. I'm just way more lenient with it. Like I get the idea of wanting to add stuff to your story of not. I think it's bullshit to hold. Not bullshit. That's too strong. But like, I feel like it's a little silly to hold a writer to the ideas they had the first time they wrote a book or a book series and go, that's the only ideas you can ever have about that series. I'm not saying that's what you're saying. I'm just saying I lean way more on the like lenient side of the equation of like, do what you want with this, as long as it feels like it makes sense to me and works. I don't know. We're just repeating ourselves now. I feel like. Let's get into the specifics, and we'll talk about it more in the specifics.
I just wanted to say, I was also looking for this.
Yeah.
As we were watching the movie, because J.K. Rowling is a little notorious.
Right.
For this kind of thing.
Right. I also just want to quickly add, I have less of a problem when she canonizes it into a film than when she just like fucking tweets it. Like,
fair enough.
I'm way more forgiving if you like write it into a script and then film it than I am if you like send off a tweet about.
By the way.
Yeah, like I don't whatever. Like I don't even say I'm more forgiving because the tweets are irrelevant. They're not canon. Well, apparently they are kind of, but like this, I'm like. Yeah, it's different to me. But anyways, right. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's get into some of our examples here. First off, how on this smog-covered Earth are we explaining away a lost Dumbledore?
The only way is it's not a brother.
Yeah, because we already know so much about his past.
Yeah.
And a long-lost brother just doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't. It's like, it's the most soap opera thing.
It really is.
That she could have possibly added to this story.
It really, again, and like I said, it's my feelings with Half-Blood Prince, Cursed Child. Mm-hmm. It feels like fan fiction. Like
yeah. Like we said, maybe he'll be a cousin.
Yeah.
Or maybe Grindelwald is lying to him for reasons.
But the thing with the lying thing is that Dumbledore is the one who tells us about the myth of the Phoenix coming to an heir or like a Dumbledore family member. And that's what happens at the end of this movie to Credence.
Yeah.
And so assuming that this myth Dumbledore knows is right or whatever, or that isn't a giant red herring.
Yeah.
Then we have to assume that he is actually a Dumbledore.
And the Phoenix thing is also kind of a retcon. Like, I don't think it matters as much.
See, to me, that's not a retcon. To me, that's not. Here's the thing. To me, this is not a retcon. To me, it is, but it's not in the sense that we had zero explanation of where the Phoenix came from. We had zero explanation of where Fawkes came from, or assuming it's Fawkes or whatever, of where the Phoenix the Dumbledore has came from. So then an explanation of where potentially the Phoenix came from isn't a retcon to me. I mean, it is, I guess, in the very strict sense of what a retcon is.
Yeah.
But to me, like when somebody says, oh, that's a retcon, I guess I'm more arguing with like the general consensus of what a retcon is versus like what the strict definition of a retcon is. Because again, when you write it there, it feels like there's a negative connotation to that of like, well, this is a retcon. It's like, it's just an explanation of a thing we had no explanation for before.
I'm just pointing it out.
I know. I'm just saying that like that kind of stuff. It's like that. I don't know. To me, it's just like, that doesn't seem like we had no explanation. Now we have an explanation. That's not I guess it is a retcon, but it's not like I don't know. I
see where you're coming from.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
I see where you're coming from, but it technically is, because a retcon is a reframing of a previous element.
But is it a reframing, or is it a framing that we never even had before? That's what I'm saying. Is it a reframing when we had no framing? It was just Dumbledore has a Phoenix. That's not. There's no foundation there. There's no explanation. And then in this, they go, this is maybe how he got the Phoenix. To me, that's not a reframing of previous knowledge. That's new knowledge. I don't know. That's different to me. I don't know. To me, that feels different. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think it might be technically is a retcon, but it just feels really different to me than like, when I go, oh, that's sort of like a retcon, which we'll talk, there's a bunch of them in here. That doesn't feel like it to me. That just feels like, here's an explanation for a thing you didn't have an explanation for before.
Anyway, this is a massive side note, but on this similar thread of thought, after we find out in the movie that Credence isn't a Lestrange, but before we know he's supposedly a Dumbledore, I was thinking to myself in the theater, like, dude, all we need to do is look up the charter records for the ship / voyage, find any baby boys around your age, and then, you know, depending on how many there are, we possibly like cross-reference with a list of everybody who died when the ship sank. So you know who could have prevented the entire last quarter of this movie? Hermione.
You're not wrong.
To the library, bitches.
To the library. Because they do go to the library in this movie, but it's a stupid library, and they don't do any actual research. They ride around on shelves. But yeah, Hermione would have been all over this. Because she's smart. This one.
Okay,
Jesus.
all right.
This is a retcon. This is way more of a retcon.
This is a retcon, and this is a horrible retcon because it serves no purpose.
Yeah. I see, that's the thing. Sorry. Go. Sorry. I apologize. Go.
Nagini.
Yes.
To what end? Is this just supposed to make me feel sorry for Nagini? And if yes, to what end? We know how her story ends up, so, like, I guess it's tragic in a way, but, like, literally for what purpose? Because tragedy for tragedy's sake is lazy. It's not a good element to put into a story.
You hear that, Shakespeare? Coming at you.
That's not tragedy for tragedy's sake. It's got a purpose!
I know, I'm joking.
And then, let's just go ahead, and I am not the first person to say this,
no,
I know. Let's just go ahead, because we have to bring it up.
Yep.
Let's delve into the fact that now this Asian woman becomes the pet of the literal embodiment of white supremacy.
Yeah.
Like, it's so awful, and it's so tone deaf. And, like, it relates back to what I was talking about in the prequel for Night at the Museum about how if you don't do your fucking research and you aren't fucking aware of things, you end up putting in elements that are gross and problematic and harmful. And it's so bad.
It's because we know how her story ends.
Yeah.
Her story ends by Neville Longbottom cutting her fucking head off.
She fucking dies.
As the eternal servant of fucking Lord Voldemort. There's no redemption arc, or there's no moment of freedom or anything. There's no... Yeah.
I just, like... And I'm making a prediction right now that however they end up explaining how she comes to be with Voldemort is going to make it worse.
Yeah.
Like, you mark my words, it is not going to make it better. It's going to get worse.
Nope, it's only going to get worse. It has to, because... She's only in this movie for like 12 seconds, which this is already problematic enough. You're going to add this whole like element of like, let's introduce the fact that Nagini was a person and then is going to turn into a snake. And we're going to put her in the movie and she's going to be in like a few scenes. And literally on top of that, she's going to have like no lines.
Yeah.
She doesn't say like anything in this movie. And like, if you're going to give her some tragic backstory, maybe like actually give her the tragic at least... I'm not saying you should, but if you're going to do it, at least
like,
fucking do it. Like,
I'm just like, where the absolute hell does JK think she's going with this? Like, where the absolute hell? Because based on Nagini's character in the movie, she really doesn't seem like she'd be down with Voldemort's whole thing.
Not at all.
She really does not.
No.
So, okay, how does she end up his devoted servant? How's she get there?
I think the implication is that once she becomes like a snake, she like loses her agency. Like once the maledictus thing kicks in and she like becomes a full-time snake instead of like part-time snake, part-time lady.
I'll snake all the time.
That's the name of my next hit single. Part-time snake, part-time lady. Be a bluesy ballad. I think that like, she no longer like, she becomes just like she loses her like humanity. Yeah, I would assume.
I mean, it's gotta be that, like, because right now we know that she can transform herself back from being a snake. So at the moment, she most assuredly retains at least some of her humanity.
Well, she has to because she bites the bad guy in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, she bites the evil circus trainer.
I get maybe the implication is that, she just completely loses herself.
Once she can't turn back or something?
Once she goes full snake. I tried to look, like, on the wikis and on Pottermore, and I couldn't find an answer for whether or not a maledictus, like, completely loses themselves.
My only other answer would be that when Voldemort turns her into a Horcrux, if he does that early enough and she's been a Horcrux long enough, maybe she... Because it never really happens with Harry, but maybe that's different. But, like, we know that when, like, they wear the locket and having part of Voldemort's soul close to them, it affects them and sort of turns them more evil, or not evil, but like shittier.
I'm gonna destroy your theory.
I'm like playing like JK's advocate right now. I'm trying to come up with it. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm gonna destroy your theory because while I was reading about all of this today, one of the things I read was that Nagini becomes a Horcrux with the death of Bathilda Bagshot, which was late in the series.
Wait, so she becomes a Horcrux like late. Well on, yes. like book 6, book 5 ish timeline?
Bathilda, no, like book 7.
Well, I mean, I know, but she's been dead for a few months at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Like, either into book 6.
Right.
Early book 7.
But, like, late.
Really?
Yeah, that's what
Has that been confirmed? Or did JK just tweet that shit?
I'm pretty sure I read that on Pottermore.
Fucking JK tweeted that shit, and somebody wrote it down on Pottermore. Well, that's not real facts. I don't know. I'm not saying, but that's interesting if that's like what the intention was, and who knows whether or not that was. Because I had always assumed Nagini had been a Horcrux.
Yeah.
Since
forever,
like since we ever saw. Well, whenever he had Nagini, which was
like starting book 4.
Yeah, but he had met Nagini in the forests of like Bavaria or whatever, Albania or whatever, when he was stumbling around with Quirrell.
I don't know, man.
I don't know, man.
I feel like it's it's still really problematic.
We got to stop thinking about Harry Potter because I'm gonna stop liking J.K. Rowling as a writer. It's gonna happen, and I don't want to.
She's like anybody else. There's stuff she does really well.
Yeah. And
there's stuff that she's shit at.
Yeah, I know. It's just I'm mostly joking, but
but yeah, it would still be really problematic, but I feel like her, I guess, losing her humanity when she goes full snake is maybe the best explanation.
The best explanation, yeah.
And I feel like they could have easily, in this movie, given her a one-off line, like something like, oh, every time I transform, I feel less and less like myself. Or something like that.
That's just
to help things along.
That is a perfect, simple one line. Would have fucking quadrupled her amount of lines in this movie too. But yeah, no, that's a great idea.
I'm more than willing to cede that she's gonna get more story in upcoming movies.
She couldn't get less.
I hope, but I just don't have any faith that story will help matters.
Yeah.
Also, side note. Do maledictuses have, like, unnaturally long lifespans?
Maybe.
Because here's the thing. If she's a young adult in 1927, and she's still around in 1998 for the Battle of Hogwarts, that's an awfully long time for a snake.
It is.
I mean, I know she's a magical snake, but it's still kind of a long time for a person, too. I mean, she'd be pushing 90.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I don't know how long snakes or like pythons live.
They don't live that long.
I don't know. They might live a long time.
90 years?
Yeah, probably not that long. Python lifespan, 30 years. Well, that's a small one. Bigger ones are actually probably shorter, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20, 25 years. Yeah. That's no more than 30 or 35 years, I would think.
She's a very elderly snake.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't.
Old lady snake.
Well, then we have more problems coming up in just a second with lifespans and timelines and none of that making any fucking sense.
I feel like cue the Doctor Who theme here.
Yeah.
So we are time jumping.
Professor McGonagall, old Minerva, teaching Transfiguration in 1990, the 1990s, 1991 to 98 or whatever. Yeah. And then she was headmaster for a little bit after that. Yeah. So like through the 2000s, she was teaching at Hogwarts. Apparently, Minerva McGonagall was teaching at Hogwarts in 1927.
Yep.
Which would mean...
And in the flashback,
which was like 3-ish to 5-6 years before that. Because I'm assuming like Newt and Lita have been out of school for at least like 4 or 5 years in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Seems like. So, yeah. That would mean McGonagall is like in the beginning of the Harry Potter series. If she was... Let's say she was 20 when she was teaching at Hogwarts in 1923, let's say. Mm-hmm. And let's go to 93. So she was 20 when she was teaching in 23. That means, spoiler, easy math, 93 when she was 93. No. 90. If she was... Because if she was 20 when she was teaching in 23, that means she was born in 1903, which means in 93, she's 90 years old.
Yeah.
When Harry starts school, or 90, whatever. She's 90 years old when Harry's in school. That's not how old McGonagall was.
I would put her like around the same age as Dumbledore.
Yeah. Dumbledore's like close to 100.
Yeah.
Or around 100.
And she's not young in the original series, but...
Also, Dumbledore, I'm pretty sure it's implied that the reason he's as old as he is, not even implied, but like sort of like the implication is that he's as old as he is because he's friends with Nicholas Flamel. Maybe every now and then he had a little sip of that.
A little sippy of that.
A little sip of the...
elixir of life.
Elixir of life from the... Philosopher's Stone. It feels to me like that's why he's as old as he is. It feels to me like
that makes a lot of sense.
That's kind of how I always thought of it. Like, he's old as shit.
Yeah. But he's still real spry and everything.
Right. And the reason he's older than most... Like, I feel like wizards don't live longer. Mm-hmm. It's how I always read it. They live roughly the same age. Maybe a little bit longer on average because of their wizard medicines, like... a little better maybe or whatever. So like maybe their average lifespan's like 80 to 90 years instead of like 65 to 75 years or whatever. Like they live 10 to 20 years on average longer. But they're not like running around super awesome at age 90 like doing whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
Because they live to like 120. Like Dumbledore lives to like 120 because again, elixir of life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that felt really weird when we were watching the movie. And then we started doing research, and it became very clear that this is maybe the most bullshit retcon.
Like, all of our research just continued to poke holes in this movie.
It just went downhill and downhill. Like, every time I thought I had an explanation, I thought I looked a little more...
Because we were like texting about this today.
Back and forth.
We were doing
well, we were typing our notes back and forth and then adding on to it.
And I was like watching you think of all of these theories and then immediately have them destroyed like in real time. It was great.
So I went to the Harry Potter wiki, which is very trustworthy. And according to the Harry Potter wiki, Minerva McGonagall was born in 1935. So already.
So we're out of the gate. We're doing fantastic.
She was -10, roughly, -8, or when this movie happened. So she could not have been teaching. Then I was like, okay, go to her family members. Maybe a sister, like an older sister or something.
Yeah.
She only had brothers. Doesn't have any sisters. No listed sisters. And I was like, okay, maybe her mom. Maybe it was her mom who was teaching. Because they just say McGonagall. To be fair in the movie, they just say, you hear Professor McGonagall, you hear McGonagall. You don't ever see her.
Right.
You don't ever see her. You do see her in the distance, and she looks young. She looks very young, like early 20s or something like that. But you don't ever see her close up. She's just kind of ever in the background. And I was like, okay, maybe it's her mom. Because that would make sense a little bit. And so I looked it up and I'm like, oh, wait, no, her mom was a wizard, but her mom was not a McGonagall.
Yeah.
Also, okay, so maybe it was her mom after she got married, but I clicked on her mom's, like, so the name McGonagall came from her Minerva McGonagall's father's side of the family, which was the Muggle side. She's a half-blood.
Yes.
And so I was like, okay, so maybe like after they got married, her mom got a job there, but there's nothing listed on the wiki about her mom working at Hogwarts. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe it's her grandma. So I was like, because her grandma's name was Minerva.
Yeah.
And you looked, because here's the thing, you had messaged me at this point and said, I looked on IMDb, the character's name is Minerva McGonagall.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Her mom's name is Isabel.
Isabel McGonagall, Isabel Roselle or something like that.
Yeah.
Her maiden name was like Isabel Robel, but yeah, Isabel McGonagall. So I was like, okay, there's a Minerva McGonagall, or there's a Minerva on here in her related family members as her grandmother. And I clicked on it. And I was like, okay, maybe it's her grandmother. And I was thinking about it. I was doing the math. And I'm like, if it's her grandmother, because the woman we saw in the movie was like in her early 20s. As if it's her grandmother, she would have been considerably older by 1927. Like if she had kids when she was 20, and then that kid had Minerva when she was 20. And then I realized, wait a second, this isn't even correct because she wouldn't have been Minerva McGonagall.
Yeah.
She just would have been Minerva, whatever her mother's side.
It's her maternal
because the paternal side is where the McGonagall is from. And I was like, well, shit. It's from the Muggle side of the family.
You tried so hard to find an explanation.
JK! I tried to defend your honor. I tried so hard. It's so bad.
And to me, this is the worst.
It's the worst.
This is the worst.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's so lazy. It's like the epitome of lazy.
It's literally just fan service.
Yeah.
It's literally just fan service. This is retcon in the worst possible way. Like, if you call this retcon, I'm like, yup, this is fucking retcon. We'll put this character in a time frame that doesn't make any fucking sense because we want to. Like, that's retcon. I mean, now there are things in between. There are extremes. And this is obviously on one extreme of like just straight up terrible retcon. But yeah, it makes literally no sense. But it's so funny when it's like the worst fan service. And there was this and I got to call this person out because they'll never listen to this. Or maybe they do. And if you were sitting next to us in the theater,
we're calling you out.
We're calling you out.
You guys were obnoxious.
There was this couple sitting next to us in the theater. And I don't want to be too critical because it feels gatekeepy, and I don't want to be a gatekeeper. Like, I don't, that's bullshit. And I don't, be your own. I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. Kudos. Like, I really truly don't like gatekeeping.
I'm glad you're able to enjoy media because I fucking can't.
Right. Well, and I can't. That's the thing. I don't want to get into it. But like, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself. I'm glad you had a good time. And I don't want to be a gatekeeper, but like, it felt, but I'm going to. Like, they fucking oohed and awed and like repeated every fucking name that was mentioned in the movie.
Like every little bit of fan service.
Every little bit of fan service. They fucking ate it up. Like, and it was just like, it felt, here's the thing that bothered me is it felt fake. It felt, because again, I don't want to gatekeep. I don't want to say like, well, we're real fans and they're fake fans. But like, here's what it felt. It felt performative because it felt like they wanted everybody else sitting around them to know that they knew that character name. And so like one of the instances was like in one of the flashbacks, Dumbledore's teaching him how to take care of boggarts. And one of the students does something and Dumbledore goes, "Great job, McLagan." And the fucking woman sitting next to us went, "Woo! Woo! McLagan!" And I was like, okay. All right. Okay. All right. Yes, that is a character name from the book series that you read 20 years ago or 15 years ago. Why are you excited about that character?
It's not even a cool character.
It's not a cool character. It's not he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Or his great grandson or whatever is an asshole. He's not even an interesting asshole. It's literally just a name of another character.
Yeah.
And there's not even a discerning necessarily character trait. Like, if I'm being generous, maybe the character in the movie was slightly pompous. Or like, but I don't even remember if that's the case. If I'm trying to be generous and like give the movie some credit. So like, why do you care about that? Like, why is that a thing you felt the need to like giggle about and go, woo?
Well, yeah, and then that's the thing that really does make it seem performative.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, it was just to me, I'm sitting there and it's just like, I felt like an asshole. Like, I felt like an asshole the whole time and listening to these people, just like every little thing. I was just like, what? Well, but that's not...
Yeah.
And like, why are you not frustrated right now? If you're such a fan, why are you not fucking frustrated right now? Like, if you're like, oh, I remember Cormac McLagan. Why are you not fucking frustrated about how fucking the Mir Verisad kind of doesn't work right? Like, why are you not frustrated about how like fucking about how Dumbledore and Grindelwald's relationship is like fucking bullshit hinted at again? Like, it just, I don't know. It was frustrating. Really was annoying.
One of the things about, I'm just going to tell my own story about them. When Lita Lestrange first shows up and they started saying to each other, stage whispering, I'll call it.
Yeah.
Oh, Lestrange, Bellatrix, she must be like Bellatrix's great grandmother. and I wanted so badly to turn to them and be like, actually, Bellatrix married into the Lestrange.
She's a fucking black!
It's her married name.
You know,
And I wouldn't be gatekeepy, except that they opened themselves up to it.
That's the thing.
By having a loud, staged conversation in a fucking movie theater.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like an asshole the whole time. I was like, fuck you. I didn't want to be, because I fucking hate gatekeeping. And I like, if you enjoy a thing, fucking right on, enjoy it. I want you to. Like, I don't want to steal joy from people. We've talked about it before, but like.
But here's the thing, though. I'm going to defend our gatekeeping.
Okay.
Because they were also gatekeeping.
Right. I guess that's what it is.
We just gatekeeped better.
Right. I guess that's what it is. It felt like they were performative gatekeeping for like not even gatekeeping, but like, woo, listen to look at us. We know these characters.
We know all the references.
It's like, but you don't. Yeah. All right. Anyways.
All right.
Moving on.
Yeah, we have like one more.
We're almost done
to talk about, and this is a me thing, because I agree with the points that you made.
Okay.
Legitimacy.
Yeah.
I felt like maybe I misunderstood the way it worked in the original series, because I thought it was more like complicated spell work, like something that you could learn to do. Mm-hmm. But then Queenie's seems more like this innate ability that she can't always control. And I looked it up, and I think I found Pottermore, or maybe it was on the wiki.
Yeah.
It seems like it
they
can
share
be
information.
Like it can be both.
Yeah.
But and you pointed out.
I think it seems a little weird, and like it's a little bit confusing at first. But to me, I was able to get on board with it really quickly, even in the first movie, because to me it felt like the idea that some wizards are just born with it. I thought it made sense to me, and it felt, again, this is sort of that subjective, this feels right. In the same way that Tonks being a metamorphomagus is something you're just born with it and can kind of do kind of like easily and without effort. It felt the same way with this legilimens of like some wizards are just born with that, like, or like being a parcel tongue. Like you just have that innately. Whereas other wizards can do it specifically, kind of like how Tonks says you have to learn a bunch of spells and do a bunch of stuff to like transfigure your face. but you can kind of do the same thing. And I felt like that was the same idea with the legitimacy. Like, it just made sense to me. It's kind of like the sixth sense for some wizards that they can just kind of read minds innately. I thought it's a little retconny in the sense that it does change our understanding, and that was never mentioned in the original book. I agree. Yeah. This is kind of in the ballpark of more of a retcon that I would call like a retcon, in the sense that this has never been mentioned, and we have at least established some rules of legitimacy before. Like, we kind of know about it. But at the same time, it feels like a pretty reasonable expansion of the world to me. Like, it feels like, yeah, sure, some of the wizards maybe are born with it, and they can just, it's like a thing that just happens, and they can control it, but it's kind of like the constant sixth sense, whereas other wizards can kind of learn how to do it. Yeah.
No, I agree that it's a reasonable expansion. I think it just annoyed me because I felt like I no longer understood something that I had previously understood. And it made me question my reading of books 5 through 7. Right. Where I was like, did I misunderstand this? Or did she just like tweak something?
Right. Yeah. See, that was interesting. That's interesting because I didn't feel that way. I pretty quickly read it as, oh, this is a different thing. It's the same thing, but it's
kind of a different thing.
Like, she's the metamorphmagus of legitimacy. Like, she just has it. Like, she's born with it. Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's legilimens. I
want you to say that entire sentence to someone who has zero familiarity with Harry Potter. Yeah. She's the metamorphagus of legilimens.
Yeah. She's the metamorphmagus of legitimacy. Are you having a stroke? Maybe. But yeah, I liked it, so I thought it was kind of cool. That's it. That's all of our notes. We went
did this
and
for
on
you guys.
and on and on. I had fun though. Let's see, where are we at? 2:20. Not too bad. But yeah, if that was added on to our problematic Harry Potter episode, that would have been a 4-hour episode easily. So yeah, that was a good idea to do it separately. I hope you all enjoyed this. If you did, go check us out on all the social media. Leave us likes, reviews in iTunes, Stitcher. We're on Spotify. I don't think you can review on there, but we are on Spotify now. But yeah, Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, all of those places you can find us. Yeah. Comment, like, subscribe, whatever you have to do.
Here's a fun fact about our Goodreads. I put the next 5 things that we're doing.
Ooh, you get spoilers.
Shelf.
There you go.
So you have like insider knowledge of what's coming up.
The only place you'll get that information. But yeah, so this will probably come out. This will probably be out on Friday. So if you're listening to this over the weekend that it comes out, look out for our Night at the Museum episode on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Look out for the problematic Harry Potter episode. If you're one of our Harry Potter fans that doesn't really care about anything else we've done, which is fine. Glad you came around and stuck around for a while. Maybe we'll sprinkle in other Harry Potter episodes here and there. We're going to do a Cursed Child episode eventually.
I really don't want to read that.
I know. We have to go see the musical in order to do the comparison.
Oh, God.
But yeah, we're going to do the problematic J.K. Rowling Harry Potter episode sometime soon. Before the new year, probably. Yeah. So look out for that within the coming weeks. And yeah, that's it. So until next time, guys, gals, non-binary, and everybody else,
keep reading books,
keep watching movies, and keep being awesome.